Hey folks, welcome to episode 8, and no, my ideas still don't suck. Let's see where we are with our radio. Okay, as you can see, we're moving along nicely. So we've got our entire panel on. We've got our we've put the switch back in, but we're not going to use the switch. The switch is going to be disconnected, and it's basically just tied underneath together. We're going to use the main power switch on the power supply that I built because it would be silly to have a redundant switch. I was going to try to wire it, and I've decided to just leave it there, so it's there for aesthetic purposes. And you'll see that we've got our copper bands installed, and I want to give you a little trick that I found to clean those bands. I was going to use sandpaper, and I thought about it and said, you know, if I slip and I bend it and crimp it, not a good idea. So what I did is in a pot, I put a tablespoon of salt and about 1.5 cups of white vinegar. I put that in a pot. And then I put in about 3 cups of water and put it on the stove to boil. And once it started boiling, I took them out and the dirt just fell off. And you could see the result here. Without having to sand them and clean all that stuff off, just automatically did a great job. And you know, I thought about sanding them, and I said, you know, if I do that, I'm just going to make them weaker, right? I'm going to make them a little bit thinner. So everything turns really smoothly. You can see here, all right? Everything's working really, really well. All of the tuning caps have been oiled and greased and cleaned and all that stuff. So everything's working really, really well here. So our next step is going to be to create our wiring bundle underneath and get our Molex connector installed, which looks like this. This is our Molex connector. We're going to cut this wire in half right here, and we're going to wire it in. And this is going to be the other end of the wiring that comes out of the radio that attaches to the power supply. So that's what we're going to do next, and we're going to make sure we follow the wiring chart. And let me show you what that looks like, because I don't think I showed that to you, so I'll be right back. Okay, so here's our power supply, and you'll see that I've got all the wires running out here. And here's our Molex connector, and on this end is the female. So I've got all the wires that are necessary to run this radio coming into this bundle. And just to give you a closer look, here's the fan that we put in, and everything is connected correctly. Everything's wired with the terminal block. And what I did here is on the top cover that's going to be on this thing, I created a map of the connections. So this is the Molex connector, and these are the rounded corners. So you'll see on the top rail here, I've got all my B+. Everything that's in green is B+. So I've got my 180, 135, 67.5, 45. Here's my B+ ground, or the B negative, however you want to look at it. This pin's going to be earth ground, which goes back to the ground connection on the 3-prong cord. This one's not used. Then I've got my C+ side, and this is my minus 4.5 volt and minus 45 volt. And this is the corresponding C+ side. And then these two connections are my filaments. Alright, so black and brown, they go to that little power supply right there. So all I really need to do now is when I wire this thing with the Molex connector, which on this side I'm going to use the male side, you'll see that's what it looks like. And just to give you an idea, this wire here is gray, this first one, right there, and that corresponds right here, gray. Then we've got white. White's next. Then we have pink and green with a white stripe. So that all corresponds here. So now I just need to wire everything correctly, and then when I plug this thing in, I'm going to be all good. Okay? So that's what our power supply looks like. So let's start wiring. Before we start wiring, I do want to show you, I did put the dial lamp back in right here, and I have the volume control connected. Everything is right here. So we're good to go on the front panel. So let's start working underneath. Alright, I want to show you what I've decided to do with wiring this thing. So I've decided that I'm going to run all the wires from the bottom of the chassis up through this can that I've restored. So I've drilled a hole here, I'll put a rubber grommet, run the wires up, and then there's a hole here which will be the wires coming out. And what I'll do is I'll use this tubing, and this tubing will hold all the wire bundle coming out of it. So that's how we're going to handle it. There'll be a rubber grommet on this hole as well, and that's how we're going to get the wires out of the radio. The chassis on this thing is very, very shallow, and I'm really not going to have a great way to secure the wires coming out. So I think this is a much better solution, and I'll be able to put some strain relief in here and prevent those wires from being pulled out. So that's the plan. So let me get to it. Okay, our grommet's installed on the bottom, and we have one right there as well. So we're good to go. Now we're going to start running some of these wires in there, but first we're going to go on a schematic and identify where they all go, and then I'll draw my color code map based on the other map that I showed you on the top of the power supply cover. So that's the plan. Let's get to it. Okay, we've got everything wired under here. It runs down through the chassis and comes out this box. And I've started to make the connections for the Molex. I've got the A plus side things done. Now I'm going to continue here. One thing I want to show you on the schematic, which is right here, I want to show you something in particular which caught my eye. And if you see right here, coming off of the 135 volt, they've got a choke in there, and it's an RFC. That's what it says, RFC1, which is basically a filter choke. There was no filter choke in here when I took this apart. So what I did was I used one of these ferrite rings here and put that around the wire, wrapped it up, and I'll show you a close-up of what that looks like. And it's a toroid ring, actually, I believe. And if you look down in here, you can see right there, I got two of them, and I've got the wire looped around it. Hopefully that's enough to take care of it. So, we'll see. Like I said, there was nothing in there when I got the radio, so I don't know if that was something that they added later. I don't know. Anyway, I put something in there just in case, so I've got that covered. I think that probably just reduces some noise, I'd imagine. So I'm going to continue the wiring here, and then we'll go forward. So I'll be back. Okay, we have it all wired up here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do one last check of everything. I know there's one thing I have to do here is connect this to ground. I'm going to do that. And then we're going to power it up, see what happens. I'm probably not going to put in the 22 tubes yet because they're very sensitive. So I'll power it up first with just one tube in it and see what happens and see if I get filament and dial light. And then we'll take it from there. So we'll be back for that one. Okay, well look, we have her powered up. She's all lit up. Filaments are working good. Dial light's working good. No audio. So we're going to power this thing down. Nothing's smoking, which is good. And we're going to start checking voltages and make sure we've got everything where it needs to be. But we're going to do that in the next video. So we're going to end this one right here. So we've got the point to at least see that our filaments are all lit up, which is good news. And we have the variac up to 120 volts, so it's not popping or anything. I hear a little bit of slight crackling in the speaker. So I'm thinking that may be related to an output transformer. So I'm going to do all that testing, and I will come back in the next video and show you where we are. Alright folks, that's it for now. We're getting close. Take care.